Hello. Frank asked me to talk about ACST2 and some issues with conclusions that are being drawn from this study. So the conclusion in the paper in Lancet was that serious complications are uncommon and similar with endarterectomy and stenting, and the long-term outcomes of the two procedures on failed or disabling stroke are comparable. The accompanying editorial suggested that based on the findings with ACST2, it was reasonable to offer stenting or endarterectomy for asymptomatic stenosis as long as the periprocedural risk was lower than 3%. Well, that's nonsense. That 3% benchmark is based on old studies with really not intensive medical therapy. We know now that the risk with medical therapy is around 1% over 2 years of stroke or death in asymptomatic stenosis. So this is nonsense. A 3% benchmark is just ridiculous. So yes, here's the periprocedural risk of death or disabling stroke in ACST, and they look similar, about a 1% risk over 30 days. But remember that the 30-day risk with medical therapy is 0%. Now here's the periprocedural risk in ACST2, 3.8% risk of any stroke or death with stenting versus 2.7% with endarterectomy. That didn't quite reach significance, but you can tell that they're different and very similar to all the previous outcomes. The 5-year outcomes were worse with stenting, a 5.5% risk of stroke or death with stenting versus 3.6% with endarterectomy. That's for any severity of stroke. And in ACST2, the medical therapy was suboptimal. Only 82% of the patients were taking any statin. There was no mention of ezetimibe or PCSK9 therapies, no mention of intensive lipid-lowering therapy, and it's probable that very few or none of the patients received truly intensive lipid-lowering therapy. The problem with wishing away minor strokes as if they didn't matter is that even silent strokes significantly impair cognitive function. And in the NUN study, even 1 or 2 small lacunar infarctions increased 20-fold the likelihood that people who had Alzheimer's pathology at the time of death had been demented during life. Minor strokes cause dementia, so you can't just wish them away. An important issue, I think, is that stenting is higher risk for older patients, and it's mostly older patients who need endarterectomy. So my conclusions are that endarterectomy is safer than stenting, especially in older patients. Intensive medical therapy is safer than both procedures. And in asymptomatic stenosis, intervention should be offered only to patients with demonstrated features of high risk for stroke. Thank you for your attention. Here's my email if you'd like to send me questions or comments about this.